I think it's important, like you mentioned, keep your head cool. Don't jump into early decisions when it's all hot and heavy.
Don't sign anything. You have to be able to take a step back and then you just wait until you can calm down and actually look at it on your own. You can't get so emotionally invested in something or in your own ideas. Like if somebody's pushing back on you and saying, hey, I think you should think about it in another way, you need to be intellectually honest enough to say, okay, maybe I do need to think in a different way.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Path of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today's guest brings a unique mix of engineering, project management and real estate investing. I'm joined by Rachael Jones, founder of Clover Capital Group, who manages a $30 million multifamily portfolio in the Charlotte market, focusing on long-term returns and community impact. Rachael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex. It's really good to be here.
It's a pleasure having you here. Rachael, let's start from the beginning. How did you start in real estate?
So my background is in the energy industry. You mentioned my engineering background. So I used to do design engineering on natural gas turbines. So think airplane engines, but the size of a building. And from there, the energy industry took a dip back in 2016, right as we were about to have our first kid. And as everyone knows, it freaks you out just a little bit. And so we started looking around for alternatives. And my father-in-law is in single family rentals. And so he put the bug in our ear to start that. So we started out just doing really tiny, the first two we had were 600 square feet. There were $20,000 a piece right next to each other. One had a drug dealer. The other one had no kitchen floor. And from there, we did all the work ourselves and it worked. It took us about 6 months to do it all, get them re-rented, but the plan worked out. And from there, we just kind of started buying one a year. Couple of years into that, we realized we could buy commercial real estate, which sounds kind of silly now, but at the time I'd never been exposed to it. So I didn't know normal people could own apartment buildings or industrial or retail or anything. And that was right around when COVID hit. So I started going online, finding all these meetups that were now on Zoom calls instead of in person. And so I got to meet a ton of people that were already doing this work and just started learning everything I could.
What year was this when you started actually?
2016.
2016.
Or sorry, we bought our first one in the beginning of 2017.
Okay, it was 20,000, two properties, 20,000 per unit. Tell us a little bit more about it. How did you find those deals?
They were on Zillow. Like I said, they were really kind of falling apart. And so pretty much nobody else wanted them, but they were in South Gastonia and they were being rented for about $400 a month and they weren't really collecting on that even. And we were pretty sure that we could get at least $650 for them once we fixed them up. And because they're so tiny, you don't really need to do, like, there's not a lot of materials you have to buy. It's just a lot of, like, nothing is plumb. So you have to, like, custom fit all the doors. Like, none of the walls are straight. Nothing is straight anywhere. So I learned how to, like, you have to, like, you're taking, like, a solid wood door it's from the 1900s. Like, they were built really long time ago. And you're, like, custom cutting the door. So, like, when you look at the door itself, it's a trapezoid. But it fits perfectly into the door frame because you don't want to adjust the framing. So I learned plumbing, electrical, all sorts of fun little tidbits on that one. We put in some new floor joists ourselves, just all sorts of fun things. And we had the baby in tow. So one of my fun stories is I had our then, I think he was about 6 months old. He was in the car seat sleeping and I'm putting in LVP flooring. And I sliced my hand with I didn't have gloves on, which was dumb. But I sliced my hand with the X-Acto. And so I need to go to urgent care with a 6-month-old and my hand's bleeding, trying to like get the car seat in and like not bleed on anything. I don't have any like first aid kit because that, again, should have. I didn't. So you go through those kind of things early on and you realize like it really helps me now because then I know like the handyman and the people who are in the like actually doing a lot of the work on the multifamily, I can have these conversations with them and be like, no, I understand what you mean about like the click together flooring or like this complicated corner. And it's like, I don't have to do it anymore, but at least I understand like where they're coming from and can offer some ideas on what's going on.
You're like, move along. I can do it myself. I don't need you.
I've said that a couple of times, but now I try to work through it. It's like, no, I'll just find somebody else who knows what they're doing. But there was some time there was like, I'll just do it. Like we got, one of the funny ones recently was we were trying to get some back patios pressure washed, and there's 28 of them that needs to get pressure washed. And in my head, I was like, okay, a pressure washer, even a decent one from Home Depot is like maybe $500 or so.
Yeah.
And then you pay somebody $30 an hour it's probably going to take 8 hours. Even if you get like 2 or 3 people out there to get it done in 8 hours, you're talking what, maybe $1,000, $1,500, including profit. And all of the quotes were coming in at like $3,000. And I was like, dude, I'll just take the pressure washer from my garage and go do it for $3,000. Like, I mean, there's better uses of my time, but it's like that kind of mentality still exists in my head where I'm like, well, I'll just go do it. Like, why? I'm not going to pay these people ridiculous sums to do something.
Yeah, and especially as this is a low skill labor that you don't have to really know how to do it. It's just a pressure wash, and it's fun too. I mean, if
It's
you listen
fun.
to
Because you just get some music going and just sitting there. It's really like you get to see the progress. It's very rewarding when things get clean.
therapeutical, I would say, yeah. And so you learn how to DIY on your first project, which is incredible. I mean, you guys done a lot of sins there. When you was done with it, how much did you get from the rental rate?
So when we did get 600 to start, and then by the time we sold them in that would be 2023 that we sold the both of them, and we again sold them as a portfolio. So we bought them for 20,000 a piece. We sold them for 80,000 a piece, and at the time they were renting for 950 a month by the time we sold them. So we continued to like increase that. So I think we probably put about 25 grand into both of like combined into them. So we were probably all in about 65, 70 grand. So it was a really good deal for us. And I mean, definitely we got somewhat lucky because again, it was right in a good part of the market. Like there was an upswing going on. South Gastonia was people are starting to get really interested, and the market in general was starting to go up around here. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was a good first investment for us.
Great experience too. I mean, it's just keep carrying you even nowadays through all the different conversations with contractors that you're facing.
For sure.
So what was your plan? Did you just invest money and you hold it? Did you refinance it somewhere midterm, or you just kept it until you sold it?
So initially we were planning to just hold it for forever until I started learning more and realized just how bad these properties were for the long-term hold. Again, built in 1900, we fixed this stuff up ourselves on the inside, but we knew like it's cinder block like foundation, like it wasn't going to be good for very long term. And when the market popped and all the prices went up, we were like, you know what? We'll let somebody else have it. But we did not refinance. So for us, because it was supposed to be a replacement to our income in case we lost our jobs, we wanted that cash flow. Like we were much more concerned about ongoing cash flow per month than we were about maximizing IRR.
I love it. And
I
what do
didn't
you
know
do
what
after?
IRR was then, by the way. I should clarify that. I had no idea what that meant, but I knew we wanted cash flow per month.
Okay, so tell us what it is right now, so our listeners can catch up to your speed.
What we're doing.
No, what is IRR?
Oh, what is IRR? So IRR is internal rate of return, and it's a reflection of how quickly you get your money back. So when you're looking at a deal, you can get, if you're doing a short-term deal, like a 3-year hold, it's really easy to say, all right, I'm putting $20,000 in, I'll get $5,000 or $10,000 out in 3 years. And then you can look up the calculation online. I'm not going to start spouting equations,
Sure.
but you essentially get your money back really fast. So that IRR goes up quite a bit. Now, if you hold it for 10 years, even if that initial investment is now, instead of you're getting 5 or 10 back, now you're getting like, I don't know, we'll go crazy, like get 50 back or something. Your IRR is probably still going to be lower than on that 3-year hold because the speed, it's just taking that much longer to get it back, but your overall return is still higher. So you have to be careful which thing you're looking at, because IRR, sometimes you want your money back really quick. Like you're trying to put it in there, you're trying to get a pop, get it back out, put it into something else. But if you're trying to replace your income, or you're trying to have like get a maximum amount out of your return, you're really looking more for that multiple of how much money you're putting in, how much you're getting out at the end of the day.
It's interesting evolution of our knowledge base, right? We all started from when single family homes and like small residential, we don't look at those numbers. We just like, okay, we invest money, we get some cash flows. That's what we look in, the most important. Maybe refinance, then we're happy about it. But when you deal with investors, now the investors need to know about this internal rate of return, how much money they can receive on their buck invested. And that's an interesting metrics that you keep acquiring while you're learning about real estate and multifamily. So what did you do with your money after you cash out from those two properties?
So I sold those properties in order to buy a much larger property. So we bought a 29-unit apartment building in Columbia with those funds. And I actually played a little game, right? So by that point, those weren't the only properties we had. And I was trying to close on Columbia without but couldn't time the closing of the sale before the closing of Columbia, so there was going to be overlap there. So what I actually did is I leveraged a line of credit on a different property to give myself a short-term loan in order to buy Columbia, and then paid myself back off of those two properties after sale.
Wow. How did you get line of credit
I had
on the
it set
property?
up a while before. Yeah, so that was on the line of credit was on a 6-unit property that we still own. And I love that property. It's boring and easy and it just makes cash. But we had set up the line of credit because we wanted that flexibility. And it does take about a month to 45 days to set up a line of credit. But the nice thing about the line of credit instead of a refinance is you still get that cash flow coming out of the property until you need that equity. So if you don't need the equity to buy something else, you can just not touch it and you don't have to pay interest on it anywhere. Because if you take it out, you have to, and you park it somewhere, even if you park it in a money market or do like 4-year treasuries or something, you're earning maybe a little bit, but the hope is that you would earn more if it stayed in the property. So by doing this, I kept the equity in the property until I needed like a short-term loan for myself. Then I paid it right back off a couple months later. So I didn't pay a whole lot in interest. And then I was able to, like, I still have like that option if I need it. And I can always, like, you can do something similar with refinancing. But again, like then you have to take the equity out and you have to do something with it in order to try to get that return to be just as high as it would be in the property.
Yeah, and sometimes if you locked in a good rate, making refinance doesn't make sense, which a lot of people face nowadays when they lock their 4-3% loans, and now they kind of stuck. They cannot refinance and obtain that cash. So, can you get a line of credit if you have existing loan on the property but you have plenty of equity, or it has to be completely paid off?
No, you can get a line of credit with an existing loan. Like that's no problem. But there's a lot of companies. I guess I've only done it on the smaller properties, and by smaller I mean like 10 units or less. I haven't tried to get a line of credit on like a 30, 40, 50 unit property. I think that would probably be more difficult, just because the banks that are giving you a line of credit are typically basing it off of like they want to be able to take the property, and they're typically smaller banks. But again, I'm not an expert there. I just know like you can definitely get line of credit on any property that you currently own with the existing loan. And then you have it there available. It typically lasts for 2 to 3 years. And it's literally just like, if you needed it from the bank, you would write a check out of it. Like it's that easy to get out rather than having to go through a loan application process or construction loan process later on.
And wait again to wholesale until it gets out and everything. And if there's always a question if it's going to be approved, if it's going to appraise, right? Love it. Okay, so you used it as a piggy bank. You dipped into it. You bought your multifamily. When you sold your other two properties, you just paid off your equity there, and you cover it there, and now you have your multifamily. So tell us, how did you find that multifamily?
That multifamily was found through a broker. We're kind of skipping around the time frame a little bit, but that one, it's in Columbia, South Carolina. So it's about an hour and a half from where I live. So a little bit further away. The other properties I'm involved with are all within about a 30-minute drive of my house. And so the Columbia one, I went down there. I was kind of looking to expand, and Columbia is an interesting city. It's just now getting some exposure on the national level. Most people think of South Carolina and they're like, there's a bunch of rural people there. Nobody really does need money. Maybe up near Charlotte and down in Charleston, it's okay. But the rest of that's just kind of, nobody has anything. And I don't know, nobody can afford to pay rent. But Columbia is interesting because it's home for the University of South Carolina, which is one of the largest colleges in the country in terms of number of students. And it's a really good school. And so that's on the south side. And it brings a lot of funding and a lot of interesting like sports games and things like that to the area. And then Columbia itself is a manufacturing center. So there's a new Scout Motors plant with like a $1 billion investment coming in about 20 minutes north of that. There's a brand new Bull Street district. This property I bought a couple of years ago before Bull Street really started kicking off, but up on the north side of town where I could see like the city had invested in like expanding the roads, and the city is investing in infrastructure. And so the city is interested in bringing more money to that side of town, but the apartments and everything around it don't reflect that level of income yet, like for the people who live there. Like everybody does, you're trying to find like a path of progress area where like you can buy before it gets there, like just before it gets there. And in this case, this property, it was a out of country owner who'd owned it for like 10 years or so. It had a whole bunch of code violations on it. Like this is a 1970s dumpster fire in terms of a property, but I got it at a really good basis. So I ended up being able to negotiate it down to where I got it for about $56,000 a door for a 29 unit building. And that gives me a lot of room to do upgrades and rebrand it and get it into a different level. Cause I could tell like it's a block off the main strip that the city was investing in. And it's the only like apartment building that's in that residential neighborhood. So the residential neighborhood, you can tell like the apartment building is actually the worst property. When you buy your own home, you're not trying to buy the most expensive house in the neighborhood, right? Because then you know your equity is never going to get much higher. You want to buy like the cheapest house. Same idea with small multifamily is if you buy like a really terrible small multifamily in a nicer neighborhood, even if it's not like a high-end neighborhood, it's just like a working class neighborhood, but the apartment building's on the low side, you know that once you get those turns done, get the units up to a certain level of finish that matches like the rest of the single families, you're going to bring in a whole new tenant base. You're going to be able to get rents up, and you don't have to, there's like a natural flow in of people that were just waiting for this to happen. You just have to do the work.
You don't want to be the best building in the roughest neighborhood in the city.
Yeah.
You want to be the opposite. You want to be roughest building in the best neighborhood. And then when you level up, like you said, your building and your the living housing conditions for your tenants, then the tenant base will catch up, and you will be able to improve the rental rates to the market in the area, which is going to be all your comps in the area. So if comps well, then it is what it is. Okay, so did you target specifically Columbia market, or did you just stumble on that property?
It was just this property. I was trying to get into Columbia. I haven't bought anything else there since. Like I just keep looking, but I haven't found anything that's I'll put it either worth saving, because you definitely find stuff that's cheap down there, but some of the, like you have to decide like, is this actually worth the effort to save it and get it up to market, or something that's the right basis where it doesn't cost me so much up front that with the way the market's going and how much money I have to put into it, I'm going to end up not getting the returns that I'm targeting.
You said that you negotiated this deal to $56,000. How much did they ask originally for it?
They originally wanted $2.1 million for it, so we ended up at 1.56.
Okay, so almost $70,000 per door, a little bit more, and you
almost
negotiated back to $50,000.
Yeah, over $400,000 off. Yeah, and a lot of it with finding stuff that the owner didn't even know was there, because he was pretty much an absentee owner that wasn't doing anything with the property.
So you negotiated after the due diligence? After you went through the property?
Yeah.
So what was the initial offer?
Yeah, it was after due diligence. So we went under contract at the 2.1 million, but then we found things like aluminum wiring where we had asked if it was there and it wasn't. So then we went through and got a quote for what would it take to mitigate the aluminum wiring. So then we got that deducted off the purchase price. There was things like the cast iron plumbing had a lot of issues. So after we inspected the cast iron plumbing, we found like there were cracks and other places we're going to have to replace. So we got quotes and asked for them to feed that back to take that off the purchase price. And keep in mind, like this place was not cash flowing for the guy who owned it. So it had, the T12 actually showed that they were losing like $20,000 a year for the past like year and a half, 2 years on this property. So they just wanted out. So that also helped me like negotiate. Like he just essentially just said, please just buy the thing. Like I don't want it anymore. He lives in Korea and like runs a Nike factory or something. He just didn't want anything to do with this property anymore. So it was a lot easier negotiation than I would say a lot of people will have to go through, including myself, on other properties.
How long was it on the market before you found it?
It was on the market for about eight or 9 months before I bought it.
Yeah, there's deals everywhere and you just have to look for them. So
That's
how does it
honestly been true of a lot of the properties that I've gotten. Is I'm not typically in the first round of people bidding on it, right? Like I might bid on it just to get my name in the hat, but especially like now that I've gone through it a lot, it's like I put the LOI out, the letter of intent to buy it, out to a broker, out to the buyer or seller, and I don't expect to actually get very far. I don't expect to win it, but what I do is I put all my notes and everything into a folder, and then I set a reminder to check back in on the property about every 2 months or so, see if it closes. And if it doesn't close, you just kind of keep tracking that. And so there's a number of deals that come back around 6, 9, 12, 18, 24 months later. And now they're willing to actually negotiate. Like, whereas before they were trying to get max price, now they're like, well, our loan is coming due, or we weren't able to we just need to get out of this thing. those are the people that I want to negotiate with on the buying the properties. Because most people, including myself, want to get max proceeds out. So if you can, you got to try. But at some point, they will hit a wall and either have to refinance or they're going to have to sell, unless they're all cash. But at the larger numbers, most people are using some amount of leverage.
I like it. It's a power of follow-up, right? So what do? You just follow up as a broker. Hey, I noticed this is still on the market. What's the deal with it?
Yeah, exactly. Just call them up and say, hey, I'm still interested. I saw it didn't close. What's the story there? And a lot of times they'll tell you because they want to make a sale too. And sometimes it bounces broker to broker. That's also an interesting thing to track. So if a deal doesn't, like if somebody, it goes on the market with one broker, it might go through 3, 4, 6 different brokerage firms. And you might get an email from each and be like, hey, look at this new thing that's on market. And you know it's not new because you looked at it, you've been tracking it. And so you can just be like, hey, I am interested in it, but my numbers are about here. What are you guys looking at? And eventually one of them will be like, yeah, no, you're on. You've got the right numbers. We're just not ready to sell. We'll keep you in mind for when it goes by. But that's why you've got to keep your own notes because you can't depend on the broker to bring it back to you a year later because they may not be on the deal anymore.
Yep. Wow, that makes sense. And if the property hasn't been sold, but you see that it's off market now, are you trying to reach out to the seller directly?
Times, yeah. If it's something I really like, I will. Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of success with off market personally. I know a lot of people do. I think it's just more of that engineering technical background. I'm just not a salesperson. I want to get in there. I want to operate. Here are the facts. Here's how much things cost. Here are my quotes. And then we just calculate from there. But dealing with off market sellers, it's much more about emotion, about feelings, about presentation. And you don't want to give everybody everything. And I think I'm just way too transparent, to be honest, to do off market. So it's an interesting realization for me. So I'm trying to get to the point where I use the brokers who are much better at those relationships. They've spent years developing relationships with sellers that aren't quite ready to sell. And so like the deal that we're closing on next week is an off market deal that a broker brought to me. So I'm paying a buyer broker fee, which a lot of buyers in multifamily won't do. But I've always told the brokers, like, look, I'm happy to pay you a buyer broker fee as long as the numbers still work. It doesn't matter to me how as long as the numbers work, like they've earned that money because they've brought it to me. I didn't have to do that acquisition. I didn't have to do that 2-year, 2 to 5 year relationship development that a lot of times has to go into finding these off market deals.
In the end of the day, the deal is a deal, right? And it's all a mathematical problem. If you have additional cost to acquisition fee, just there's party involved who helped you to find the deal and close the deal. So why not to reward them? And this is how you continue a relationship. Maybe next time they're gonna have a pocket list and they'll come back to you. Hey, Rachel, I have something for you. Hopefully, right?
It's more important to get that deal closed. And I'm not looking like home run deals would be great, but those base hit and double kind of deals, those build your reputation as somebody who can close, as someone like to the broker's eyes, like now they're bringing you deals and they expect that you could actually close on these. Because there are a ton of people that will talk to them and be like, yeah, I'm interested in it, and then never talk to them again about the deal ever. And so the brokers, or they'll string them along for a month or so, and then they'll be like, never mind. And like, or the worst part is where like you get almost to closing and then it like the whole deal falls apart. Like that really hurts your reputation, both for that particular broker and their firm, because they all have databases on everyone they talk to. Like keep in mind, like you're building your reputation not just with that broker, and sometimes not even that brokerage firm, because the brokerage firms talk to each other. They trade people switch from one brokerage to another. And so your reputation does get out there for how you treat the brokers. And yeah, some of them are not great. Absolutely not everybody's got their pros and cons. Like some people are really great, some people are not. But the ones that are good and are trying to find you stuff in your buy box, you need to treat them with respect and be upfront with them. Because if you try to pull the wool over their eyes, try to do something that you cannot do, and then it falls apart at the end for reasons that are in your control. Like if it's not in your control, that's different. But reasons that are in your control, that really dings your reputation. You do that enough times, they'll stop bringing you good deals. They'll just send you stuff that's on market, and that's not where you want to be.
Might as well. No one likes to lose their time or money. And time is money for people who's working day-to-day operations and sales. So it does make sense. Let's dive deeper into 29 units. I've heard you had some recent troubles there. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so the 29 unit Columbia that I mentioned earlier, that one's had quite a story since we took over. So I bought that one in June of 2023. And then I had a third party property management company on it, and I didn't like them. After a couple of months, it became clear I didn't want them there anymore. So I decided to bring that in house and manage it myself. And I'd been managing other single families and stuff before, so this wasn't a huge jump. It was just like the next evolution. I was like, okay, we'll just add it in. And so then January 1st of 2024, we were now official property managers of the company. And then January 21st of 2024, the building caught fire and 8 units burned down. So it was so that's 6 months after we bought the property. I was at the time when I got a call from my contractor. It was about 2:00 in the afternoon. I got a call from my contractor who was out there working on things and said, hey, the property's on fire. So I turned on my camera, which again, also always have remote accessible cameras on your property. They don't cost that much. And man, the peace of mind and the ability to do remote things is way worth it. But I turned on my cameras, building is clearly on fire. I start recording my screen. And then I also start trying to call people and be like, what do I do? And the biggest thing was, you need to get down there. That sounds great, except my husband's out of town and I have to pick up my kids in about 15 minutes from school. And then what do I do with my kids? Because I know if I go down there, I'm going to be down there at least overnight, probably for more than one night. Okay, so then I start calling my mom and figuring out childcare while I'm also in between calls. Like, I have a fire going on. Like, who do I need to talk to? What are the steps I need to do? Because I've never done that before. And so I figured out the kids stuff, and I'm able to hop in the car and start driving. So the whole hour and a half drive, I'm on the phone with 3 or 4 different people that I've been networking with, some of them off of X that do like opportunity zones and do handle a lot of insurance claims and stuff. So they were like coaching me through the process that they use. So by the time I get down there, I at least like have a general plan of what needs to happen. So we get everybody safe. That was the first thing we needed to check. Fire department's there, police department's there. All the tenants are out in the parking lot because nobody can be in the building. It's just a big mess. And we ended up being there. I stayed the night for 2 nights just in the office. Like, I had a blow up mattress and I just slept in the office. The first night I hardly slept at all because we were trying to get the water shut off because the fire, it's all on one water meter, and the fire created enough pressure that it blew the backflow valve up next to the road. And that backflow valve isn't like in stock anywhere at 11 p.m. At night. So then we've got to turn the water off to the other 20, at that time it was like 18 tenants that could go back in their homes. So they had no water, but they insisted on staying there. Anyway, it was just this whole thing, and it was interesting. It was like stuff like the tenants were like, well, where do we go to the bathroom? And I was like, you're going to have to go find a restaurant or go to a hotel or something. But most of these, this is a C-class apartment building. Most of them can't afford a hotel room unless like the Red Cross was giving vouchers to those that were like that lost their units or couldn't get back into them because of what the fire department did to them. But the other people weren't getting any kind of coverage, even from their renter's insurance. So they were trying to stay in their own homes, which is fine, except when they're out there with a bucket at the gutters because it's raining the next morning, so they can get some water from somewhere because we have no water on property. Anyway, it was a whole mess.
You also was a property manager of the property, so you had to handle all the operations. You have to handle all the conversations with fire department, police department, with all the charities that came out. So tell us, how did you deal with the tenants who actually lost the house? Did you just tell them, hey, you have to go to the hotel, there's nowhere to stay, it's not up to me? Or did you have to reimburse them? Or did you contact charities? How did the process look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I also, by the way, I do have an assistant. She's virtual, so she's remote, but she was able to field a lot of the outside calls. So the media is calling too, by the way. There's like camera trucks and TV crews and things taking video of all of this, trying to get interviews to answer questions. So that adds to the excitement. But in terms of the tenants, the Red Cross actually came to property, and so they passed out water. They passed out. I had to go through and check with them like which person was on the leases, and then for those people that were impacted, they gave them hotel vouchers for 3 nights. But it was just 3 nights, so they had 3 nights to figure out where else they could go. Now, tenants are supposed to have renter's insurance on, like, according to the lease, they're required to have renter's insurance. And we'd only had the property for 3 weeks under our management. And we realized a lot of people, we had not a lot, but I'd say like a couple of people didn't have renters insurance at all. And a couple of them only had the liability insurance, LLI is what Appfolio calls it. And that doesn't cover their stuff. That doesn't cover them at all. That liability insurance really just covers if the landlord gets sued, that's what that covers. That's it. And so for those people, they had nothing. So we did accept some donations at the property so that like there were people, I said it got on the news. So there were people calling my assistant saying, hey, can we donate stuff to these people who lost everything? Because the tenants who lost everything are getting on the news and saying the landlord's terrible. The owner's doing this. They're being delinquent. All these terrible things. And it's like, we've owned this property for just 6 months and we have been trying to fix it every day since then. And we just didn't get through everything. So there was no delinquency. Like we were not found at fault at all. Like nothing we did was wrong, but that's not what they're telling the media. And so anyway, we took donations. We let the tenants that were impacted know they were there. Like I went and got crates of water and some snacks and food and stuff to bring to property. So they had something to grab and at least something to eat. Because they did lose everything. Like you try to be human. But I didn't have any money to pay for hotels for everybody. And I can't set that precedent because I definitely can't pay for that on an ongoing basis. So it's a tough emotional day to deal with the tenants at that point.
It's some of the events that you have to be prepared as a tenant, right? With your insurance, tenant insurance. And the fact that you didn't have it, you can't really control if they have it or not. You can require it, but in the end of the day, they can just take it and cancel it the next day and you wouldn't ever find out.
You can find out because we're alternately insured. So we actually get a letter every time they cancel it. And when they cancel it, though, the only option we have is to put them on that LLI, limited liability insurance.
But if someone has renter's insurance, so they can get in a renter's insurance and then they can cancel it. Can you find out if it has been canceled?
Yeah, you can. Because as a property manager, you should be added as they're additionally insured on their rental property. So you're not going to pay for their insurance, but you will get a notice if it gets canceled. And so if it gets canceled, we can add them on us, we use Appfolio. So we can very easily just click a button and add them to the limited liability insurance if their insurance gets canceled. And then they have to pay an additional $10 a month for that. But that doesn't cover them in case something happens. And so especially now after the fire, we're very proactive about being like, look, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But for another like $2 to $3 a month over that $10, you can get all of your stuff covered. You can have a hotel room covered. Like you get a lot more coverage. That liability insurance really just covers us in case like somebody gets sued. Like that's the only thing it does.
That's an important point. But if they refuse to that, then at least you talk to them through the situation that it's possible. Things can happen and you won't be liable for their housing or accommodation after that it's going to be on them. So if they're willing to take that risk, again, it's going to be on them. They'll have to maybe sign some waiver at that point. But I think it's important to keep the communication channel open.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best you can do is tell them that they have to have insurance. It's in their lease. But if they refuse to get their own, you can add them to the limited liability, and then they have to pay the extra $10 a month. It's part of their rent. So if they don't pay, you can evict them for it if you needed to. We've never had to do that. But yeah, the best thing you can do is just make them aware, because a lot of people don't know like that difference between like what renter's insurance is versus what that LLI is, because those are not the same thing.
Why do you need to add them on the LLI? What this liability insurance actually gives them? If someone sues you, it's still to go after you, not after the tenant.
It's the tenant has to have that coverage for if something happens to them or somebody in their unit. So like it's up to $100,000. If somebody trips on a carpet and breaks their leg inside of their unit, they're not suing the tenant, they're suing me. But if they have that LLI coverage, that coverage covers that unit, if that makes sense. It covers them and any of their guests on property. So
basically, their guest on their property, it will cover, and it's not gonna fall on you, but it will be covered.
Yeah. We still have our own umbrella policy and everything to cover, like if somebody trips and falls on the property, we have that. But
you have additional umbrella after your general liability?
Yeah, we do. We have umbrella, general liability, and property.
An umbrella is covering this property, or you have extra umbrella for the other one under one?
Yeah, the umbrella covers the property management entity. So our LLC that does property management, it covers all the properties that one does.
Okay, very good.
Good question.
So how did you deal then with insurance? You got this fire on the property, you dealt with the tenants. Okay, now tenants are situated, there is some vouchers, you have some breathing room, you can breathe out, tenants are comfortable, everyone's safe. What do you do with insurance?
So you file a claim. That's first step. But even before that, the first time when I got out to property, there were already people there trying to get me to sign contracts with them to do the demolition and renovation on the property. Like they chased the fire trucks and the ambulance. Like there wasn't an ambulance, but the fire trucks. They heard it on the radio. They knew it was happening. They came to property to try to get me to sign stuff when I like being like, oh, they're trying to catch the people that don't know what to do and that are willing to make. They're so emotional and kind of scared in the moment that they're willing to sign anything when somebody gives them a, hey, I can help you out. Just sign this, please. And I'm sure they would do a great job, but they are also very, very, very expensive. And if you, like, I didn't sign anything. I also didn't tell them I was the owner, which is another thing. I used my assistant. So everything had to run through her. So if somebody asked me a question, I said, look, I'm just the on-site property manager. You're going to need to talk to Ella. That was like the line I used to everybody. I was like, they were like, can we give you a card or this information? Here's a packet. Somebody gave me Starbucks, like gift cards and like all, like they gave me like a little package, marketing package. And it was like, this is all great. I'll give Ellie your information. Let me deal with the tenants. Like there's other stuff I got to do right now. And so it's an interesting, those are all, and all those people are adjusters. So what they're trying to do is be on your side of the equation when you're negotiating with insurance to help get like the most money you can out of the adjustment portion of it or out of the insurance company. And that's great service. Like I did end up hiring somebody to help me do that, but they typically charge somewhere between 5 to 8% of the total insurance claim. So in this case, we had 8 buildings burned down. So that's going to end up being almost $2 million. So I would have had to pay them like $200,000 or more out of that. So instead of using it for the property, I've got to pay them for it. But what they don't tell you is they're actually not the ones doing the work. A lot of the times they're hiring an intermediary. They're called an umpire to do the work, and they're paying them like half or less than half of what they're charging you. And so they're really middlemen they're salespeople, but it's a tricky slope. So don't sign anything the first time, like at the disaster. Like you can wait a couple of days. That was one of the big things I want to get across to people. Like if something happens to you, flood, fire, whatever, don't sign anything that anybody brings to you then. Like just say you'll take their information, you'll review it, and you'll get back to them. And then you just wait until you can calm down and actually look at it on your own.
I think it's important, like you mentioned, keep your head cool. Don't jump into early decisions when it's all hot and heavy. And especially those people, they know the tricks how to push the buttons. Probably, hey, I know it's very bad. I know it's tough. It's very scary. It's the most
you could
scary.
Be one, Alex. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, and because I had a situation like this, and the restoration companies just keep calling. We had only 1 unit burned, but they kept hammering us back and forth. We ended up dealing ourselves. But it was also a great learning curve. But in this, it's not only adjusters, but also restorations companies. And restoration companies has also their adjusters on their side, and they just trying to get maximum for their renovation. So if you hire regular contractors, it probably costs you $150,000, $100,000, $200,000. If you go through those guys, it can cost much more than that, because they value their time more than regular contractors. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, no, I forgot to mention the restoration companies, but you're absolutely right. They're right in there with you. And once you sign a contract with one of them, they don't have to come out and fix it right away. Like they'll say that we'll be able to get out here quick because we're signing this quick. They don't have to. There's nothing in their contract that says they have to get out there at any kind of time frame. So I've talked to some other people since then that got stuck because they signed it then, and then they could nobody would do any work for a couple of months, but there was nothing in the contract to do it, but they still had to, they want to get paid. Like everybody gets paid by insurance, so they want to eventually do the work, but all they're after in that moment is to lock you up so you can't do anything with anyone else.
Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good companies, also restoration companies as well, but in reality the rule is the same. Don't make rush decisions in any situations, and that's what it is. You can still hire one of those companies to fix it for you if you don't have time for it, but you have to really understand pros and cons and all the inside information. Okay, so
100%.
You wait a couple of days, you open a claim with your insurance company. How did they react to it? Did they send an adjuster right away? What happened after that?
They did. They were actually really good to work with. And I know most people think insurance companies are not, but I think part of it, so it was a company named Auto Owners that we were insured through. And they have even up till now, because we're still in the process of rebuilding, they've been very straightforward to work with. So they came out, they sent their adjuster out to take a look at the property. And because there's so much debris, everybody's trying to figure out what caused the fire, right? Because the insurance's first job is to try to blame it on somebody else. So if they can blame it on an appliance manufacturer or an HVAC manufacturer or on me, like their job is to find some way to blame the fire on somebody else, so someone else has to pay for this. And like they couldn't, like they weren't trying, like it's not malicious, it's just that's their job. And so they couldn't find somebody else to blame it on. So they end up having to write me a check. So they wrote me a pretty large check up front because there's a lot of additional payments that go on with that. So the first check that they sent, while big, isn't anywhere close to what they will pay out if I actually go through the rest of the process. And so it was nice to get that in the bank, because then like at the moment I was at the time 12 units, because 4 of them weren't burned down, but they were severely damaged by the firefighters trying to make sure the fire wasn't getting through. So I'm down 12 units on a 29 unit property. So almost half of my income is wiped out. I do have business income coverage. It's definitely helpful, but keep in mind, I've only had this property for 6 months and it was losing money before I bought it. So I've been trying to get it to the point where it makes money again, but I hadn't gotten there yet. And they're using historic T12, so 6 months before I even bought the property, to calculate what my business income should be, right? So it helps. I got some money, but it's definitely not what, like I was like, but occupancy was trending this way. Like this is the T1 and even the T3 is a little bit better. And they're like, no, we use the T12. All of this to say, it went about as well as it could have, with the exception of the demolition piece. So because you can't fully determine if the foundation is good or not until you demo everything off of top of it, so you can inspect the concrete and everything underneath. And then they don't want to demo anything until they've determined if anybody else is at fault. So they won't release the scene, is what it's calling. They won't release the scene to me until they've decided that they're done with their investigations. So that took until the end of April. So it happened in January. And the end of April, they finally released the scene to me. So there's 3 months of there's just a pile of like burned down stuff everywhere. And so we can finally start demolition like 3 months in.
Did the city complain about it?
Good. Oh yeah. Yeah. I gave them a deadline. That's why we even got it in April, because they actually were like, they were trying to still like go back and forth on it. I was like, look, I'm just going to start demoing things in May. Like either you're out, either you come like figure this out, or I'm just going to start demoing things. And what they found was the problem was an HVAC unit on one of the units. Again, they're trying to find somebody else to blame. So they took all 8 HVAC units from I don't know why, they're all different ages, they're all different makes, but they took all 8 of them and they flew them to Florida to do a forensic inspection of these 8 HVAC units to try to find blame, so somebody else would have to pay for this. But once they took those HVAC units off property, I could demo. So I was very happy to just be like, yeah, just take them. That's fine. I just need to demo this and see if I can even reuse because at this point, I still don't even know if the foundation's still good and I can rebuild, right? Like I don't know what it's going to cost. But yeah, it ended up the foundation was good.
Have you done any legwork during this process? Have you tried to find another adjuster? Have you tried to look for other people that know about it?
Yeah, there's definitely some legwork going on. So in the background, I found the Umpire that I mentioned earlier. So I talked to a couple of adjusters. I decided the claim was big enough. I did want to have somebody on my side. And I ended up finding an Umpire who's been really, really helpful. And they were able to start negotiating with insurance on my behalf. And what they do, like as an example, like they'll come, my Umpire came out and he took a full 3D with a drone and everything of the property, got his full estimate together, and then compared his estimate to insurance's estimate. And he's literally going like, how many screws, how many pieces of siding? Like it's that detailed, because every piece of material has a labor attached to it. And every one of those has a specific value attached to them in the insurance's database. And so he knows like how insurance is looking at this. So he can go through and make sure I'm getting every dollar that I need in order, or that I can, so that when I go to rebuild, I have as much as possible in order to do this, to get this done. So he found like insurance missed, it has a breezeway, like an outside hallway, and insurance didn't count the siding on the inside of that hallway. And so he caught that and was able to get that added back in. There's another number of other things like that he was able to come up with and help me get coverage for and negotiate with insurance on the parking lot. So to rebuild this, when you rebuild, you have to bring a property up to code, right? In this case, it's connected to the rest of the building because it's all one building, but it has a firewall, which is why the rest of the building didn't burn down, is they were able to stop it at the firewall. So we're able to get the city of Columbia to agree that the firewall was the end of the building. So that section was actually its own building. So that's the only section we have to bring up to code. But to bring it up to code in Columbia requires you have to have one handicap parking spot. It has to be ADA accessible. Our property is on a slope like this and has no flat parking spaces anywhere that you could get out in a wheelchair. So now we are we're having to dig up, like repave part of the parking lot, flatten it, bring in dirt, flatten it out, and then all for one ADA parking space. It's costing almost $200,000 for one parking space. And so
it's costing insurance $200,000.
Well, that was the thing, right? So my umpire luckily was able to be like, look, in order to get insurance to cover it, because it's not like the building, insurance typically covers the building, not the parking lot. But the parking is required by code. So insurance was trying to argue that they didn't have to pay for that because it's not part of the building envelope. And so he was able to negotiate with them, be like, no, because it's required by code and because it's connected to this dot and this dot, here's the document, this is why. And he was able to get them to cover it. And it was one of those things where we can't rebuild without it because we won't get a certificate of occupancy, but insurance really doesn't want to cover it. I didn't want to pay for it. I didn't want to pay $200,000 for a parking space. Like, that's insane. But that's what the city was requiring. And we tried to get around it in a number of different ways. And there was another option. It was really frustrating. Insurance, to your point, now it's insurance is paying that money.
Did you have to install fire sprinklers as well?
Yep. Yeah, now that portion of the building is fully sprinklered. Yep.
The other part doesn't have sprinklers, right? Because of the 1970s. And this is just a new one. And how much does the sprinklers cost you?
I think those are 150 or 180,000. So that's covered under the code coverage too. Yeah.
As well. So did they try to argue that as well, or they were normal with that?
No, that one was pretty easy because it's in the building envelope and it's very clear on the stamped architectural drawings. Like, this is the code that requires that in Columbia. So that one's much harder. Like, they're not arguing with that. They just need, at least to auto owners, the easiest way to deal with them was they really just need the documentation because the people you're dealing with are not the people making the decisions. They're rolling it up the food chain. I lived in the corporate world before this, right? And so moving up, knowing what the people in the upper levels need in order to approve something, like if you can give that to the lower level people doing the work, that makes their job easier and that makes them much more likely to approve what you need. You have to start thinking about who's actually making the decision and then get them information at the bottom level. The more you know about that process, that's why the umpire was so helpful because he knows that whole process up and down. So he could say, we need this document, this document, this document. Even if the insurance person had no idea what they needed, he knew exactly what to give them so that when they rolled it up to their boss and their boss's boss, because this is a big claim, it would get approved.
So it was totally worth the money, right? We
100%.
didn't have that stress. So to pay this Umpire, did you have to come up out of your pocket to pay them, or it was included in the entire?
Yeah, it's a percentage of the claim. Yeah, so same as the adjusters we talked about before. It's just a significantly less percentage than what those adjusters that are chasing you at the very beginning are charging.
No, but explain to me this. So if the insurance is paying for a total claim, the total claim is itemized repairs on the property. So is this adjuster is one of the items on this quote?
He is not. No, the architect is, the contractor and their profit is, but the adjuster is not on there. So you've got to make sure that when you're quoting to get the rebuild done, because I guess back up, that what the insurance says it's going to cost to build, that doesn't mean what it is going to cost you to build it. It could be more, it could be less. So it's up to you to
find a contractor. How much insurance is willing to pay for these repairs?
Yes. Yeah, so you'll get that out of insurance, but if you can find somebody who will do it for less, you keep the rest of that money.
Yeah, you just keep the same quality and the same itemized sense and just make sure it's up to code and everything as well as itemized as insurance said.
Hmm.
Very fair enough. So you're still in the process, right? You're
Yes.
finishing that property?
Yeah, we've
So
got framings up. They're putting plumbing. I think the ductwork's done now. So the plumbing and the electrical are going in now. So we should be done in September. Like the whole thing should be back up to running. So by next spring, I'm hoping the whole thing will be
we'll
will
cash
finally
flow
be done.
again.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
Make
it's
cash flow
really kind of
great again.
terrifying, right? I mean, it's a long time to go without 8 units on the
Oh my
property.
God.
Because we were
Yeah, and
down
it,
12 initially. We were able to get 4 back up because they weren't completely destroyed. But that took time. And we also lost, as part of that, we lost our laundry room. So I just finished updating the laundry room in November. The property hadn't had a laundry room in 3 years because the person who had it before me, there was a sewage backup in it, and they literally just shut the door and left it. So that sat until we came along and decided to fix the laundry room. So in November, I just like sent out the tenants, here's the code for the laundry room. Look how awesome this is. And then in January, it burned down. So that was very frustrating. So we'll have a new laundry room again. We'll have a maintenance area. That was our storage down in the basement of that area that we can't use for storage right now because it's all open. Um, yeah, we lost a lot of stuff.
luckily, luckily you're gonna have brand new units that you're gonna can bring to market rents super easily, and it
Hmm.
could be even probably. I think you mentioned it's gonna be bigger units as well, so that's a plus. But
Yes.
on a on the other side, your insurance rate might go up. Most likely it will because of the fire, um, and but you don't know yet how much, right? Because you don't have to be. You still insured under the same company, or how does it work?
No, if you have a big claim like that, the company's pretty much dropping you. Like that's a pretty good rule to live by. So yeah, we got dropped from that insurance coverage the fire happened in January, our coverage was up in June. So we did have to get insurance on the property, except for the 8 units that were getting rebuilt because they're covered under their own builder's insurance policy. So for the 21 units left, we had to get insurance on those. And it did go up significantly. It almost doubled. We got a lot of quotes. Some of the quotes were, I think the highest one was like 120,000 or something a year, which on a 29 unit property, like I just wouldn't be able to have it. There just would be no insurance. Like it just wouldn't make any sense to do. You just have to put that money in the bank and hope you didn't have a big claim for a while. But we were able to find it for close to 32, I think
Okay,
32,000, which is
still
affordable. Like it's still
significant.
high. It's still definitely high, but it's like, okay, that I can afford. Like, let's go ahead and do that. So that's where we're at now. And then once the 8 units come back online, depending on what the insurance market is doing, we might actually get a lower amount because now we don't have construction ongoing on property, and we've got the whole thing. Like the new ones will have sprinklers and a lot of other
So
bells
it's
and
better
whistles.
insurance gonna be.
Yeah, so the insurance may come down, but then the insurance industry as a whole, prices are going up, so I don't actually know where it's going to land.
Well, you'll have to see how it goes after you're done with the renovation. Okay, so I mean that was incredible story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely.
interesting how you stick to it and you still made the best out of it and you still making it happen. And soon you're gonna have nice, beautiful new units up and running in no time. So tell us more about your journey. Before that, I know you told me that we jumped a little bit from 2 units to 29. What was in the middle?
In the middle was a 6 unit property I mentioned briefly. And then I also did a mobile home park joint venture, which was a lot of fun. And then I've also done three other syndications outside of that 29 unit, getting like using other people's money to like, I do the work, I put in a little bit of money and then kind of help get the whole deal together. Those were with partners. So not just on the money side, but also on the work side, the general partner side. So it's been an interesting journey because I stay around the multifamily residential. I like that portion of real estate. It makes sense to me. I like the impact it has in the community, but I keep learning different ways that you can play in that space.
I love it. So that's how Clover Capital came into existence, right? You decided
Yep.
to invest in large syndication. So what did it look like today? How big is your scale? How many units you have under your belt? And what is your main focus nowadays?
Yeah, so I'm an active partner or owner on about $30 million worth of real estate. That's about 240 units right now. And we focus mostly in the Carolinas, buying heavy value add properties and fixing them up. So I really like the transformation aspect where you go into a community, you identify a property that's just on the edge, or if you turn it around, it's really going to help the neighborhood. And then you also run the numbers and you're like, yeah, this is a great investment. And then you go through that process. And then if you continue operating it there, like it's so much fun to watch the neighborhood around you transform like afterwards too, because you can see the neighborhood coming up. It's like, oh, people are buying houses because now it's a nicer neighborhood because now you have a better demographic than you had before. So that's a lot of what we end up doing. We talked about like the rebuild on Columbia is definitely the most complex thing that I've done because that's ground up almost, or foundation up, I guess I'll call it. I didn't have to do entitlement or a lot of those other pieces for new development, but I did get a taste of what new development looks like. But we have done like gut jobs on the 28 unit up in Mount Holly. And this new one that we're buying next week, we're also going to do, it's not going to be a gut job, but it will be like a big turn where we're doing all new flooring, update the cabinets, countertops, vanities, like all the stuff, as well as replumb the water pipes.
I think one of the most important thing of a sponsor, operator, and main general partner on any deal is experience. And from your experience, I feel like everyone's super comfortable. Oh, if something happens, Rachel got it. She can DIY the whole thing by herself. The maintenance doesn't show up, Rachel. She got it. Don't worry about it.
I definitely take a mindset of like making lemons into lemonade, like that. For whatever reason, I enjoy doing that. I think it's an extra challenge to be like, all right, we've gotten this complicated situation. I'm not going into a project thinking, oh my gosh, like I hope something goes wrong. But for whatever reason, when stuff goes wrong, that's when like my adrenaline spikes and like, man, okay, how can we figure this out to make it even better when we come out the other side of this? Like now it's an optimization problem. Like, all right, we're going to get insurance money here. How do we best use it? So when we come out of this, we're going to make like the property's going to run even better for both the tenants and the investors. Like that's taking it a whole new level. And I do really enjoy doing that.
Seems like with all of those restorations and other, I heard you also had hurricane issues not a long time ago. Yep. Oh my God, it's a whole nother story. We're not going to stick to it right now. We don't have time for that today. We don't have time for it. But I know you have a lot on your plate. So are you still looking for new deals nowadays, or are you trying to stabilize what you got?
Yeah, still looking for new deals. So we'll close on a new deal next week. And then I'll probably spend the next month or two getting that like stabilized, making sure everything's kind of running. That should be about a 7-8 month project. And then plus the lease up afterwards. And so I'll probably, about in a month or two, I'll probably start going really heavy back into acquisitions. I still have that pipeline building. So I'm still talking to brokers. Like I talked to brokers this week, still looking at deals, just maybe going deep into 1 or 2 a week instead of more like one to two a day, which is what I was doing before, trying to find something that works. Because there is a lot of banging your head against the wall in acquisitions.
Are you focused on your core markets where you are right now, or you looking nationwide?
No, just core markets. The longer I've done this, the narrower my geographic region has gotten. So it used to be North and South Carolina, and then it got to be like Charlotte and the Triangle and the Triad and the upstate, as well as down in Columbia. So it kind of shrank in some because I decided I didn't want the insurance risk on the coast. So I was like, I'm not going to the coast, but I'll go inland. And now it's like this part of Gastonia, North Columbia, like these particular areas in those cities, like it's getting much more narrower focused. And I think that's helping me actually find deals that I really like, because it's very hard to go deep on everything. So the more you find these pockets that you want, especially close to home where you can really know like what's happening in the market, it helps you find a better deal.
Very good. And real quick, on your latest deals that you acquire right now, did you find a good deal? And what can you run a little numbers about it so we can understand what the market looks like?
You want me to talk to like the Charlotte market?
Yeah. What about your latest deal right now? What are you doing?
Yeah, I don't know that I want to talk about that one for everybody right now, just because it hasn't closed yet, and I'm not trying.
It hasn't closed yet. Oh, okay.
It hasn't closed yet. Yeah. It doesn't. Okay. I don't want to talk about it till after it's closed. Then we can talk more if it. I don't want to talk about it till after it's closed.
No, it's good. I'll ask another question. So, Rachel, in today's environment, with rising interest rates and changing conditions, how are you adjusting your investment approach?
Oh, that's a good one. A lot of it has to do with risk mitigation. So that's one thing coming from energy industry and corporate world. They do spend a lot of time thinking about how to mitigate risk, not just what the upside is, but what the downside is and how do you minimize that downside. And so when you've got interest rates that are probably going up, maybe staying stable for a bit longer, but I think long term we're going to see them go up. You've got to make sure that your leverage is lower. because you want and especially in Charlotte market right now, you're seeing where rents are stagnant. We still got all these people coming in, but we have so much new supply because it's such a popular place that for people that were counting on those 94, 96% occupancy and they leveraged 80% loan to value, your break even, if your break even occupancy is 94, 96 to where you can pay your bills, even if it's at 90 for in some cases, like you're not making any money or you're losing money. And so if you're going into a higher interest rate environment, even if you have a low interest rate on your property, you need to account for the fact that whoever might buy your property, or if you have to refinance in the future, your interest rate is going to be higher. So you need to make sure your property is lower. So for example, we're going through a refinance right now, and the property valuation's actually gone up quite a lot. And so we're going to get a cash out refi, which is fantastic, but we're actually not taking the full cash out refi. We're cutting those proceeds down quite a lot because what we're worried about more is making sure our loan payment is low enough that we can still pay everything we need to, even if we are at 80% occupancy in Charlotte, which sounds low, but that's part of I think that's part of the conservatism that comes from experience, right? So went through a fire, went through a flood, had to live off reserves for quite a while. And that 6 months of reserves will go by fast. And so making sure that you've got those reserves in place and making sure your break even occupancy and your leverage is low, that's really a key going into this market.
Okay, I love it. I love this answer. But what is your long-term vision for Clover Capital? You continue to scale, you keep buying stuff. What is your goal, short-term and long-term here?
I think short term, I'm looking to continue getting more into these 30 to 70 unit size properties. I really like the Charlotte market. So I don't have I need the certain level of units under management for me to be happy with what I'm doing. I want to do great projects that have a real impact on the community and the neighborhood that they're in. And as long as I can keep finding those that still generate a really good return for an investor, I'm going to continue doing those and growing them. I think long term, I'd like to get into development. The taste of doing from the foundation up that I've had on the fire property, I've had a lot. It's been really exciting. It's been a lot of fun to design the units around the demographic that I think that market and that neighborhood match. And I think I can continue doing that more in the future. I just need to get more reps under my belt to feel comfortable going down the development route, because development it's more money, but it's also more risk than buying existing.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything new is more risky, right? Because you're getting out of your comfort zone, and now you have to think in a different direction. So now it begs the question, how do you balance your family life, your kids, your husband, and running the business and being a property manager and acquiring new assets and still running all of this stuff? It's 30 million. It's pretty impressive amount for a total portfolio. So it's quite a lot of units. And running exactly at the same time restoration project and you have another hurricane restoration project. So how do you do that?
I think I like it. That goes a long way. So it's a lot of fun. I wake up in the morning trying to figure out what I need to do for all these different projects. But I focus a lot on family. So one of the reasons I've only been full-time real estate for about almost 2 years now. So I was working a full-time job on top of most of the story we went through. Going full-time real estate was really a play to get my time back. So I could pick up the kids from school. I could be there in the afternoon to help them with homework. I have that time flexibility. So I do end up working in the evenings and sometimes on the weekends. I do end up you can't take a day off during vacation. You can take you might have to work for half an hour or an hour, but you're not taking a whole week off and turning everything off because you are an entrepreneur. You're not the business revolves around you. It does help to have an assistant. So having Ella has been a great help. So she does a lot of the property management. So she talks to the tenants, she routes maintenance work orders. She's all the leasing calls go through her. So she's the one returning all of the prospects calls. So a lot of that daily churn, the phone calls and stuff, I've offloaded to someone else. And that way I can focus more on the strategic aspects of Clover. And I'm probably going to continue that trend as we keep growing. I really like using remote. I will need somebody else local to help me with eviction cases. You have to have somebody local. It is really helpful to have boots on the ground, but it is amazing what you can do remotely, especially if you have cameras and smart locks and all these other things. You can change locks from the Philippines. She can just change the lock code for somebody or let maintenance into a unit. There are systems now where you can do a lot of remote management for these smaller properties. And I think that's a great leverage that we're going to continue growing.
Very good. Okay, Rachel, I have last few questions for you.
Okay.
Quick hit, lightning round. So whatever first comes to your mind, let us know. One book or resource that had a major impact on your business or investing mindset.
My favorite is Never Eat Alone. It's not a typical business book, but it focuses a lot on sincere relationships and being yourself and being authentic and using every interaction as either leaving a positive or negative impact on somebody else. And so the more positive interactions you can have with another person, every time you eat, every time you go to the grocery store in line, that really it grows your network quite a bit more and it grows your sense of community quite a lot and very quickly.
Noticing the pattern when a lot of successful entrepreneurs, real estate investors keep repeating the same book, you start paying attention. I heard this book before and especially in this podcast a few episodes before. So I'm definitely gonna read it now. Most important trait a business leader, real estate investor should develop.
I think the most important trait is intellectual honesty. I didn't have a really good phrase for that before. I heard that on podcasts recently. I was like, that's it. That's what I've been trying to think of.
Click.
So I can't take credit for it. Kind of harsh at it, but intellectual honesty where you're looking at a deal and you love it. It's in this great location, blah, blah, and you find something wrong with it. You have to be able to take a step back and say, there, that ruins the deal. Like you can't get so emotionally invested in something or in your own ideas. Like if somebody's pushing back on you and saying, hey, I think you should think about it in another way, you need to be intellectually honest enough to say, okay, maybe I do need to think in a different way. And you may still go with your direction, but being able to have that as a leader and going to, especially as an entrepreneur, like you can't get so focused on something that you're not listening to everybody else around you because there's a lot of smart people out there. There's a lot of people smarter than me. And a lot of people have been doing this for a lot longer, that have been doing it for generations where their families have been doing it. And you will know stuff that they don't, and they will know stuff that you don't. And you have to be willing to listen and kind of fact check your own thoughts about it.
One thing you wish you knew earlier in your journey.
I what I wish I knew earlier. I wish I'd gotten started earlier in real estate, but I think what I wish I knew earlier is financing. So I didn't go take any business classes. And if you're getting started in real estate, it really is a business. Like the more you treat it like a business from the ground up, like you have the systems in place to do proper bookkeeping, to do all the proper documentation, like it sounds easy to skip those steps, especially early on. But the more you treat it like I going into this, it's just me right now, but I'm going to have 100 people under me at some point. Like, what do I do today so that when those 100 people start onboarding, I don't have to do 3 more times, right? Like I don't have to keep changing the process. And the more you think of it from that perspective and like, oh, well, is it the government, if I'm big enough, the government's going to come audit me. Like, what do I need to do with my bookkeeping processes today to make it easy that when I do get audited, I don't have to worry about it. And it's just this mindset of instead of skirting around stuff, you actually just take it on. Even the boring lower level stuff, you take it on head on. I wish I'd known more about the business side early on so I could tackle that earlier, because I did have to kind of reinvent a couple of things that slow you down because it's not a huge value add in the moment, but what you're doing is building a basis for a bigger business long term.
But like everything, it has to start somewhere and you grow to your role, right? And the entrepreneur and the business leader and real estate investor, we start from somewhere. We can know everything from the start, but it's definitely something that you would wish you would knew how to start the process and how building the whole thing from the ground up to grow something bigger sooner. Because eventually you still have to do it.
You
but
do.
It depends where you start.
Or hire somebody to do it, but then you still have to know how to hire them and what to do, like what questions to ask and what to make sure that they're doing. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, Rich, I have one last question for you. If someone wants to connect with you, or maybe invest in one of your deals to hear your stories, how can people reach out to you?
So you can go to my website, clovercapitalgroup.net. You can also find me on X at Clover_cap. I'm on there a good bit at one of my favorite platforms for real estate, #retweet. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Rachael Jones. I think it's MS, but you can find me on LinkedIn. And honestly, you're welcome to email me at Rachel@clovercapitalgroup.net.
Awesome. Rachel, thank you so much. It was a great conversation, and I love hearing your story and how you went through the struggles and you making the best of it. Definitely, it's one saying for you is life's thrown you lemons. You just keep making lemonade out of it, and you keep pushing and progressing, you're optimistic, you DIY everything, and I think this is a confidence that people want to hear in their general partners and people that they invest money with, and in general they can partner up on some real estate investors and hear and learn from someone like yourself.
I appreciate it, Alex. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad you let me come on and share my story.
Great story. Thank you so much. And everyone else is listening today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and as always, keep moving forward.